For those of you who have never been here, welcome. It's a good time. It's an opportunity for you to learn some things about the television business, learn things about me. I'll have things to say this morning that aren't in the book and haven't never been on television. And I think you'll find it to be kind of fun. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
Everybody talks about my voice. To me, it's just my voice, but to everyone else, it's kind of like a trademark thing. When I first did the show, and I appeared on television, and the entire screen was my face, it really startled me. It's like, good God. And then I spoke. And I looked at my wife and said, do I sound like that? Because your own voice doesn't sound to you the way it does reproduced. Oh yeah? No, that's your voice. Really? It's just, it was very odd to me. But anyway, it's still odd to see yourself on television. And this is many years. If you would have said to me 10 years ago that I would have a TV show to be on for 7 years, it would be in 178 countries in 100 languages. It would be, I would have a book published, I'd be in a Netflix original movie with Jeff Garlin and Kelly Cuoco, and on, I would have accused you of being on weapons-grade narcotics. No one would ever believe this would happen. And people always ask me, well, how did this all happen, or how did it get started? So I'll just save you the trouble of asking, I'll tell you. In the 1990s, Diane Sawyer had a program on television called Turning Point. It was an attempt by ABC News to get into the 60 Minutes crowd, primetime television, 2 or 3 stories. It lasted for 5 or 6 years, did pretty well. I was in my office at work in Colorado Springs, and my office was the Tower of Babel. Telephones and cops yelling at me, and radios going off. And I look up, and Diane Sawyer is in my doorway with her hands in her hips and a film crew behind her. I had a murder case that drew some national attention. I looked up and I looked at her, and she said, "I'm Diane Sawyer." And I said, "Well, I knew that. What do you want?" I don't like the press, any level of the press. But she said she was a little taken aback by that. So she said, "Well, I have to talk to you about this case." I said, "Well, we have 2 hours to do that, and then we're done. I'm a busy guy. We'll do it right now. Come in here, bring those people in here, turn your camera on, talk." "Well, I can't do this in 2 hours." I said, "Well, that's a shame, because you're down to 1 hour and 59 minutes. So she came in and they did the thing, and I wasn't about to try my case on television. So I didn't talk about this guy. I talked about murder, violence in society, why people kill people. So it was very generic, no dates, no names, but they loved it. So they played it on national television for 30 minutes. There's Kenda sitting in his office, talking about dead people. And it was, they played it all, every word. My mother-in-law called me from Pittsburgh, Kathy's mother. She said, "I saw you with Diane Sawyer." I said, "I know, I was there, Mom. It was her." I didn't care about it. I was busy. I didn't even think about it. Well, when that show went away, they sold that interview to the History Channel, to A&E, to anybody that wanted to buy it, because it would plug nicely into any show anybody did about murder. 30 minutes of film. Guy talking about the crime of homicide without dating it, without being specific, so it was the perfect thing. And they played it all the time. Friends of mine say, "I saw you on the," "Oh yeah, that's that interview I did," And a producer sees it, and he writes me a letter, and he says he's going to make me a TV star. I read this letter, I put it down. I was already retired. And my wife is sitting across the table. She says, "What's that?" "It's a letter from some guy who says he's going to put me on TV, like that's going to happen." "No, you should call him." "I'm not calling him." "No, you should." "Nope. I don't like those people." For 3 days, she wore me out. She has a PhD in nagging, you know. And, oh boy, you know, so I said, all right, I'll call him. And here we are. Here we are. And every day, she and I still look at each other and say, is this really happening? Is this an extended dream, you know? You know, she's a nurse, I'm a cop, you know, you live in a modest home, you drive a used car, you save your money to send your kids to college. We did everything everybody else ever did. And now it's this new life. The first time my wife ever rode in a limousine, we were living in Colorado. We lived out on 5 acres. I'd have had 500 if I could have afforded it, but I only had 5. And this limo comes down our driveway. We're standing outside. The guy bails out of the driver's seat and looks at Kathy. He says, "Madam," she's holding the door open. And she just stood there. I said, "Kathy." She said, "What?" "You're madam." She knows she's madam now. And it's just been a bizarre experience to be around the entertainment business, to be all the things that it's become and all the things that it is. Not everybody goes to the movies, but everybody watches television. It is the ultimate communications business worldwide. And I'll tell you something most people don't know. The world does not make television. They buy it from the US networks and the BBC. And they put their language to it and subtitle or voiceover. So every year they have the Golden Globe Awards in Cannes, France for movies. Everybody shows up and they do the movie thing. The week before the movie thing, they have something called MIP. It's French, and I used to know the words, and I don't remember the words, but everybody calls it MIP. And at MIP, the US networks and the BBC show up with their wares, and the world's buyers come and say, "What do you got for me?" And the #1 desired program worldwide for the past 10 years is American Reality Crime. So at the Discovery booth in Cannes, France, they have a canvas picture of me 30 feet high. My producer sent me a picture of it, and he stood under it for size comparison, you know. And I said, "You think that's big enough?" He said, "It ought to be. It costs 10 grand. You know? But it draws people. They buy it and they run it, and it's all over the world. And my daughter, who works for Global Strike Command at Barstow Air Force Base, Bossier City, Louisiana. She's a retired Air Force major, and she's now at GS-14 with them. And she, her husband is there too, and they both work for them. And they don't watch TV. They work like dogs, you know, all the time. They don't watch television at all. She knows that Dad has a show. You know, Dad has some show. You know, keeps them out of the bars. You know what I mean? And that's kind of all she knew. She's never experienced or seen the fame thing or the recognition thing or anything. So this past summer, I said, "Get your husband and you, and I'll take your brother and your mother and I. We're going to go to Ireland for 15 days. And it's on your old man. All you do is show up." You know, so we did that. We go to Ireland. It was wonderful. We're in the Dublin airport for like 10 minutes. And it's the #1 show in the UK. On Sky Network, CI, and it's their version of ID. And this Irishman walks up and Mr. Kenda, may I have your autograph, sir? I said, "Of course you may." My daughter looks at me and says, "Dad, what? That man called you by name." Well, yeah, he did. "Well, how does he know your name?" "Well, you might be surprised that I'm pretty well known." So every place we went in Ireland, "Oh my God, you're Joe Kenda," and then so by the end of the trip, she would say, "Our famous father." You know? My son is a commander in the Navy, and he wears a name tag, says Kenda, right? So his best line is that he's very big in the secondary fame market. Because everybody points at his head, "Do you know that guy that's on it?" "Yeah, that's my dad." Well, it's not your dad, but do you know him? Really pretty funny. He had an admiral do that to him, a 2-star admiral. It said the same thing. He's not your dad. And you're like, no? So I have an autographed picture that I made to the admiral, and I said, I really am his dad. The guy was really thinking, it's pretty funny. So the kids get kind of a kick out of it, and Kathy does, and so do I. I mean, it's interesting. When I worked, everybody either hated me, they were afraid of me, or both. And now everybody wants to be my friend. It's very bizarre. When the show first started, Kathy and I were in a mall getting something for my daughter, and it was first season. And a woman walked up to me, and very nicely, and, oh, I love your show, I saw it. And I looked at her and I said, take your hand out of your purse. And she looked at me and says, what? Take your hand out of your purse. Ooh. And Kathy grabbed my arm, she said, Joe, and but it's instinct, you know, it's like, what's in that hand? Is it a gun? You know? Because it takes a long time to lose the venom from doing what I did for a living. I was not friendly, not at all. And distant would be the best word to describe me. And Kathy and I would go to a party. She's a nurse, so we had to go to parties and pay the medical parties. Well, everybody in Colorado Springs knew who I was because I'm the murder guy. I'm on the TV news every night, and everybody's talking to me all the time. I'd walk into a party and the temperature would drop 30 degrees. Every toilet in the building would flush. Everybody's like, God, it's 8 o'clock, I gotta go home. You know? So pretty soon it's crickets at the party. And he said, you're a real buzzkill. Sorry. It's just kind of what it is. But if you join the police department today in Colorado Springs or any other city, there is a protracted, weeks-long police academy where they go through any number of courses and professional matters. And then you graduate from police academy, you're a police recruit, and you're assigned to a field training officer. They wear a designator on their uniform that they're an FTO, field training officer. They write daily observation reports on tasks that you accomplished, that they show you how to do. This goes on for weeks, and about a year after you get the job, you actually are awarded a police car and a bunch of bullets and say, go out and do the right thing, okay? But not until then. Well, back in the day, before we had trees, and I was on the police department, my police academy was 2 weeks long. 2 weeks. Carl Petrie was the deputy chief of investigations, and he smoked unfiltered Camel cigarettes. I never saw the guy without one. He either had it in his hand or it was in his mouth with smoke going in his eye and one eye closed. Title 18 of the Colorado Revised Statutes is the criminal code of the state of Colorado. It contains every crime you can commit. It's a gigantic volume of law. It starts with first-degree murder, and it ends with killing dogs in a contest. Right? And Carl Petrie stood in front of the room 8 hours a day for 2 weeks with smoke going in his eye and read Title 18 of the Colorado Revised Statutes to us. That's what he did. This was our training. And everybody's like, what is this? You know, so then also at that time, now we have field training officers. That is a big program. We have a commander of the field training officer unit. You know, oh, it's a big deal. You know. Then you were a rookie rider, and your training officer was selected at random in lineup. The sergeant would look around and go, you, take him with you. Yeah. That's what it was. So my very first day, I walk out of the back door of a police building that no longer exists. And my leather still squeaked, you know, because I'm brand new. My gun belt made noise when I walked. And a police car drove by from my right, and the driver stopped, and he stuck his head out the window, and he looked at my name tag. And he said, how do you say that? I said, Kenda. Well, Kenda, welcome to the greatest show on earth, humanity. And he smiled at me and he drove off. And I thought, I wonder what he meant by that. I found out what he meant by that rather quickly. But I got in the car, well, before I got in the car, some other cop asked me, who are you riding with today? Charlie Jackson. And this guy looked at me and said, oh, good luck, kid. And I thought, uh-oh. You know, so I get in this police car. And Jackson was a very tough guy, combat veteran, you know, from the Korean War, stout lad, good with his hands. Well, he had to be then, you know. And I got in the car and I stuck my hand across and I said, my name is Joe Kenda. His reply was, don't touch that radio. Well, this is going to be a long day. You know? So we get out of the car at one point. You do bar checks when you work in patrol. You know, you get out of the car, walk through the bars to see what's going on, make sure nobody's doing anything stupid or illegal or whatever. So we're walking in the bar. Jackson's in front of me. Let's go in here, he says. We walk in. This guy at the bar is drunk. And he looks at Jackson and said, if you didn't have that gun and that badge, I'd kick your ass. Jackson took up his badge, took up his gun belt, handed it to me, and proceeded to wipe up the floor with this guy. I thought he was going to kill him. He was sitting on his chest, pounding his face into the floor. I said, Charlie, he's had enough. I'll decide when he's had enough. And you could hear a pin drop in that bar. He got up and he says, anybody else in here want to kick my ass? Everybody's staring at their drinks. That was the old days. The true old days. That same guy that he fought with, 2 weeks later, walked up to Charlie and said, officer, I was out of line. I got my ass kicked and I had it coming. And he did, right? Would that happen today? No. They'd sue you for $100 million. Right? But back then, people took responsibility for what they did. Now they don't. You know, it's interesting. So it's a different world today, and it's a different police department today, and that's ultimately a good thing. But when I first came on the job, I was referred to as the college boy. Yeah. Very few guys were college graduates in the police department. At that time, now you have to be one, but at that time, all you needed was a high school diploma. Be pretty good with your fists if you had to be, and that was about all that was required. And so everyone hated me because I was a college boy, and some of the guys, well, you think you're smarter than us. Well, actually, I am smarter than you. And I would play that up as much as I could. So, but that was, those were the days, you know. And so, while fast forward a little bit, I'm still in patrol. I get a new guy. Ride with him, points at me, right? So this kid gets in the car, tells me his name. Hey, I'm Joe Kenda. How are you? And I wouldn't treat him like I was treated. So we're talking, and I said. And he looked pretty nervous. He said, well, I said, yeah. I said, well, it's your first day, and we'll see if we can, I don't know. It's going to be quiet, and we'll talk, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me. We pick up that radio and announce we're in service, and a dispatcher jumps on it, you know. You have a disturbance with a fight, possible weapon involved, 2112 West Kitcheris, handle code 3. Whoa. Okay, so we turn on a red light siren. I look over at Don, and Don is like white as a sheet. He's been a policeman for 2 minutes. Red lights and siren heading west on, you know. So we get to this house, and there's a woman on the porch, and there's damage and broken windows, and she's got blood running out of her mouth and a mouse in her eye. I said, your husband do that to you? Yeah. You want him arrested? Yes. Want to sign a complaint? Yes. Don, go get a complaint book. We're not doing anything until we get a signature, because unfortunately in marital disputes, you know, that doesn't always work, so sign a piece of paper, she does. So as we get all that accomplished, I hear this voice out of the backyard. And it says, come back here and get me, you sons of bitches. So the lady on the porch, we start off the porch, and she says, officer, what? He's got a gun. And Don stopped dead in his truck. Just stopped dead. I mean, it froze him solid. He was afraid. There's nothing wrong with that. Fear is instinctual, okay? But I had to break that fear. He was immobilized on that sidewalk. He couldn't do anything. He just stared at me. I don't even think he could see me. Yeah, he was just emotionally relaxed. So I had to make him mad at me to break that thing. And I said, hey, Don. Don? What? If you get killed, can I have your watch? And he looks at me and says, what? What did you? I said, hey, you're back now. You're back, all right? You talk to him and keep him busy. Just yell at him, call him names, do whatever you want to do. I'm going to flank him. You know, so he starts yelling. The guy's yelling now. He's focused on yelling at Don, you know, because Don's yelling at him, he's yelling back. The guy's got a 30-30 Winchester.
Oh my God.
And he's standing behind his garage. So I walked up behind him and I put a gun right behind his ear and I said, hi. He threw that rifle like 20 feet in the air. And I said, do you have another gun? Because I think you better get it out because I seem to have this one. Okay. You know, and Don never forgot that. He never forgot that. I mean, he laughed about that for years. I mean, he wasn't laughing at the time, but he understood why I did it. You know, I had to break that moment for him. Otherwise, we weren't going to get very far. And I needed his help. So it's interesting how you develop an instinct for human nature and how you can use it to your advantage. Push people's buttons, do whatever you have to do that. And so it makes it very interesting, you know. And the thing about humans that I don't understand humans, but they interest me. Humans are very complicated, and it's fun to get involved with people, or at least it was for me, who had done some horrible thing, and I need to get them to tell me about that. Interrogation was the thing that I enjoyed the most. There is no magic way to interrogate anybody. There are a number of interrogation schools, interrogation interview techniques taught by the FBI, taught by the Southern Police Institute, taught by all kinds of people, John Jay College in New York. They've all been around a long time, but ultimately, if you're going to be successful at interrogation, you have to develop a plan and a method that you're comfortable with, one that works for your personality. Not what's out of a book, not what they told you should do, but what you feel good about doing. And then you can be successful over time. You make mistakes. I made horrible mistakes when I initially started interrogating people. But every time you do it, you learn. And if you make a mistake, you should learn from that mistake so you don't make the same one again. And then you develop a kind of a technique that you use that maybe won't work for the next guy, maybe it won't work for anybody else, but it works for you. And I would tell my detectives that, you know, don't do what I do. Do what you feel like doing. You got to get in contact with somebody. You have to make friends with him to a certain level. You have to convince him that you are there to listen to him. People like to talk. Let them talk. I had a guy one night who we arrested for, we didn't arrest him for us, we arrested him for the state of Texas. He had a stripper girlfriend, oh boy, and he went to prison, and shockingly, she found someone else to be with. Good heavens, you know. He gets out of jail and finds this out, that she has a new boyfriend, and he murders the boyfriend, kidnaps her, and goes in a 3-state crime spree of armed robbery and dragging her by the hair the whole time he's doing it. And he winds up in Colorado Springs. They're sitting in a bar. She's kind of convinced him that she's now willing to go along. He gets up to go to the men's room. She tells the bartender to call the police and tells him her little story. So here we show up, and the chase is on. We catch him. He's got prison tattoos so intense that it looks like he's wearing a black t-shirt until you get close to him and you see it's ink, all right? But he's naked to the waist, but it looks like he's wearing a black t-shirt. He's a convict, he's an experienced bad guy. He is angry because now he wants to kill the girl, you know, because she ratted him off. And he's in handcuffs. And he's sweating, it's summer, it's hot, and he's in an interrogation room. And he can't wait to yell at the first guy that comes in there, which is gonna be me. So I walk in, and he just starts to open his mouth, and I sat down on the floor and put my arms behind my back and started rolling my neck. And pretty soon he's looking over the table at me, going, what are you doing? What are you doing? Do you ever have trouble with your back? Well, yeah, I've had trouble. Yeah. We're not yelling at me, are you? You're not calling me names. You're not cursing at me. You're understanding that you too have trouble with your back. You break that ice by doing something really simple. You take away the rage. You confuse him. What's that guy doing? What's he doing? And then he'd go, boy, I got trouble. You want to take those handcuffs off? You take them off? Yeah, I'll take them. Want them off? Yeah, they're off. Yeah, okay, I'll take them. So 2 hours in, we're buddies. Now, the point is, he's still a criminal. He's not my buddy. He's a criminal. And I said, why did this guy shot his victim with a .44 Magnum pistol? One of those is enough if you shoot somebody. Okay? He shot this guy 6 times with a .44. So I said, why did you shoot him 6 times? He just stares at me, saying, because they didn't have any more bullets. Well then, that explains everything now, doesn't it? So, he managed to stay out of prison for 61 days. And now he's on his way back forever in Texas. They don't have a sense of humor in Texas about their behavior. So he's going to be in Huntsville until he dies. You encounter people in the world who are blessed with a certain moral flexibility, who whatever is good for them is good. There is no right, there is no wrong. It's whatever is good for me. And if that means I have to kill you, well then I will. I'll just do that. And I won't think about it. I won't even concern. I won't remember maybe the next day. There are people like that. There aren't many. Most killers are people who allow their emotion to overcome their judgment. They do something really stupid, they get very, very angry, blind rage, they act, and then they're so sorry. Oh my God. Well, unfortunately, society won't accept your apology. We want your life instead. Put you in prison, whatever, kill you. But those are the majority of murders involve that. There are those few guys. When you identify one of those guys, then you have to make every effort to put him away. Because he kills because he likes it. No other reason. Okay. They're very rare. Very, very rare. They exist. I've only encountered one in my career that's like that. And he's on death row in Colorado. And so the funny part of that story is, we get him an instant. The Supreme Court of the state of Colorado is the most liberal Supreme Court in the U.S. It's interesting, it's the Old West, but it's the most liberal Supreme Court. They commute his sentence to life. They show him mercy. We're not going to kill you now, we're going to spend your life in prison. He sues the state, demanding to be executed because he didn't like prison. So now he's in court. With the same idiots that, never trust a guy who wears a dress to work, I always say. But anyway, he's going to court now and wasting more of your tax dollars to complain about not being dead. It's absolutely insane. The system, we get so lost in the discussion of the rules, we forget the point of the game. Very unfortunate. But it's the way things are, particularly today, when we are so concerned that we cannot offend someone, because that would be awful. Even though the rest of the world offends people and kills them all day, every day, we're going to be different. Right. We're going to be like everybody. Oh no, we're not like, we're not even humans. We're Americans. We're not like everybody. So it's kind of silly. So the point of all of that is that, in doing this work, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Mrs. Kenda, not so much.
Right.
She was tortured by it all those years, and she got to the point finally where she couldn't do it anymore. I could have, but she could not. So it was her turn. I retired. And it took me 2 years to lose most of the venom. And I was sitting in the kitchen one morning, and I was drinking a cup of coffee, and Kathy, my wife, says, "Honey." I looked at her, and I thought, "In case you haven't been paying attention, I've been sitting here for 2 hours." She says, "I know, but you're the guy I married again." I thought that was very nice. Because I was not a policeman when I got married. We met in high school, as those of you who read the book, you know all that. But we've been together all our lives. We celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary the day after Christmas. We tried to get married on Christmas Day, but the church was busy. Somebody was birthday with a baby. I don't know, something. So we had to do it the next day. Nobody remembers our anniversary as a result, but that's okay. We do. We're going to go into question and answer because you're going to be tired of listening to me by the time this week is over. If anybody has any questions, please ask away. Tim has a microphone in his hand.
Detective Kenda, thank you for your time today. Are you ever asked by other police departments to consult on a case?
What we do in regard to that, I belong to the International Association of Total Case Investigators. We created an organization a few years ago. We got 50 of the best minds in homicide. We have Dr. Lee from the O.J. Simpson case in L.A. We've got Cyril Weck, the coroner from Pittsburgh. We have cops, we have lawyers, we have everybody that's involved in murder in this organization. We respond to agencies who have difficulty with a cold case. There are many small departments around the United States that either have never had a murder ever, or they've had one in 30 years. It's not their fault, they just don't have the experience to know what to do. So if an agency contacts us, not an irate grandmother or an upset aunt, none of that, If you're an agency and you get a hold of us and you say, "Hey, can you help us? Send us your reports, send us your evidence, send us your photographs, send us everything you have on this case." There is no charge, it's free. We're going to give you 5 things to do. When you do those 5 things, we want to know the results. Then we're going to give you 5 more things to do. And we process them through the case. And so far, we've made 5 arrests and convictions, in some cases 20 years old. The problem with that is, and it's human nature, it's got nothing to do with anything else, egos get involved, "Oh, we don't need those guys." "Oh, yes, you do." but that happens, and they say, "No, we're not doing that." Okay, well, whatever, we can't make anybody do it, but we're available if you want help. We'll provide that help. That costs you nothing, except the cost of shipment of the documents or whatever. Because you can't electronically transfer all that stuff. It's got to be physically in your hands. So, that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, Joe, over here to your left, any player?
Good morning, Detective Kenda. Do you still qualify with your service pistol?
I don't still qualify with it. We had to go every month to the range, and I don't do that. But my son has a range at his house. So it's kind of convenient. We do a lot of that.
I thought you qualify once a year.
Yeah, we did it every month in the spring. We had to. So no, I don't do that anymore. But I did it, of course, but not anymore. I was never a member of the Hole in the Wall gang, by the way. You know what that is? Accidental discharge. You become a member of the Hole in the Wall gang, and you suffer until the next guy does it. When you shoot your locker or your police car, or you set the 12 gauge in the rack and it blows a hole in the roof of the car. And you're a hole in the wall gang member. And everybody rags you until there's a new guy. And then you're forgotten an hour after the new guy.
Thank you for being here. I'm enjoying myself so much. You're my hot date every Wednesday night.
Uh-oh.
My Western knows to go to the workshop because Kenda's on. Besides your saying, my, what are some of the other taglines that you like the best?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you don't realize this, but there is no script on the show. I say whatever I want to say. And I don't know what that's going to be till they turn camera on. I mean, I don't think about it, you know, so they have to film me first, okay, because they don't know what I'm going to talk about. If I presented a murder case the way it happened, the show would last for 16 weeks and nobody would watch it. It'd drive me crazy. Yeah. Is that this rabbit warren? No, that's not it. Now this rabbit warren, nope, not that guy. And then you develop a crime suspect and they say, oh, this is him, man, it's got to be him. And he was in jail the night of the murder. So so I have to reduce the case report into a understandable story that a perfect stranger can grasp how we got from the discovery of human remains to a courtroom in 43 minutes and 50 seconds. That's how long a show is, the rest of it's commercials. Unless you're in Europe, they don't have as many commercials, and it's 52 minutes and 10 seconds long. They get to see 9 more minutes of show than you see. So when I do that, I just decide what the basic components are, and then I say it, all right? And that is me. My personality is on the screen. I mean, I'm no different in person than I am on TV. No different at all. And I say a lot of things, and sometimes people are a little shocked when I say a lot of things, but I started the my thing. I didn't start that. The network picked up on it. I would use that in interrogations. What I'm looking for in an interrogation is the first lie. Tell me a lie. If you lie to me, I'm talking to the right guy. Innocent people don't have to lie, okay? So if you tell me a story and then I wait 2 hours and I ask you to repeat that particular element, what were you doing again that night? He can't remember because he lied the first time. He lied the first time, so he tries to remember, but it's different. There's a subtle change in it somewhere. And then I will say that to him, well, my. Now, 2 hours ago you said this, and now you say this. Were you lying then? Are you lying now? Or maybe you're just a liar. What do you think? You know, keep people off balance. Right? So when I do that, they do the transcript. They type the transcript of what I say word for word. They send it to Knoxville, Tennessee, where the reenactments are shot. And the writers use that to write scripts for the actors because they have no idea what these kids are. They're actors. Except for the policemen in uniform on the show wearing CSPD uniforms and driving CSPD cruisers. Those are active duty Knoxville PD cops. I hire them. They love me. Okay? They absolutely love me because if you work an extra job, some departments call it extra job, some call it extra duty, where you put in you get on a list and the bank wants a cop in the lobby, you know, for 6 hours and they pay about $30 an hour to the department. But the officer doesn't get that. The department takes a piece and then the cost of the car, you get $15 an hour, whatever it is now. Well, I pay $3,000 a day. Nice. Well, all right then. So everybody signs up. But the other point is these guys are cops. You don't have to teach them. You want to take a building? They know how to take a building. You want to do a felony car stop? They can do that. You know, it's one take. It's ultimately cheaper for the production company. Because they don't have to instruct them. You know, they know what they're doing. And their tagline, they have an organization there that hires out to these different movie companies. And their tagline is as real as it gets. Because it is. They're all active duty cops. So they sign up on their days off. So anyway, as far as you answer your question, I can't. When I talk, I just I'm a raconteur, as they said. It's the official word for someone who can tell a story in an interesting way. For thousands of years, people have gathered around the fire and said, tell me a story. And if you tell it well, they'll ask you to tell another. That's all I am, a storyteller of my own experiences. And it all seems to work somehow. Everybody seems to like it. My wife is always my best ally. I told her, I said, this will never be on television. Oh, you're wrong there. I said, no, it's gonna be huge. No, you watch. She was right. She almost always does. I never would have suspected it would turn into what it has.
Okay, come on over here, Jim.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Joe.
Oh, okay. There you are. Sorry.
I'm Robin, and this is my husband Jim from Oregon. We just started watching your show, and I've learned so much. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
So, I just wondered if you have met John Douglas, who came up with the profiling of the serial killers, and what you thought about the profiling, not political meaning of it, but
No, of course not. The profiling unit of the FBI started in 1984. Been around a long time. I know a lot of those guys. I know Douglas's name. I've never met him, but I know a lot of people in the profiling unit. The basic principle of the profiling unit is there is a textbook that is used to train psychiatrists, among other books, of course, the Statistical and Diagnostic Manual of Personality Disorder. And it contains descriptions of the various perversions of the human personality that are considered to be insane. The behavioral science unit believed that if they interviewed people in prison for murder, for violent crimes, get some insight into their personalities, this would yield a training method to have policemen be aware of how someone like that with that personality disorder would live his life. Where would he work? Would he work? What kind of car would he drive? Would he be married or not? Would he have friends or would he be a loner? All those kinds of things designed and revolving around understanding how crazy this person was. The difficulty with it, and it's not anyone's fault, but in order for it to be truly remarkably accurate, the guy has to be pretty much textbook crazy in that particular way. And very often people who are disturbed pick various things from other personalities, so they're not consistently one particular way. If you are one particular way, you can get found through behavioral science and through that method of behavioral profiling. But if you're a composite kind of guy, very difficult, very difficult. But it's very useful stuff. Any tool is a good tool when it comes to understanding everything.
Back here.
Hi,
Hello.
my 9-year-old mother and I have been watching your show for years, and we love it. And pretty much every Wednesday night, I go to the assisted living facility and we still watch you. And she was so excited that I was coming on this cruise.
Well, good for your mother.
Yeah, so I'm finally getting to the question. Did you know you wanted to be a celebrity? Did you pitch the show to the network, or did they pitch it to you? And were they ever considering anyone else to narrate?
Okay, I'll answer all of that. It's pretty easy, really. The producer that sent me that letter, that my wife twisted my arm until I called him. In the TV business, you have to produce something that's called a pitch reel. You make a DVD, professionally edited, high definition, 6 minutes long, no longer than 6 minutes. Television is character driven. You have to feature your main character and then the premise of the show in a 6-minute DVD. You submit that to a network, they look at it, they make decisions about it. In reality, if you don't know somebody to submit it to, the network is going to use it for a coaster. Okay? But if you have some sort of influence, or you're an agent, or you know somebody, Discovery gets 100 of those a day. 100 a day. Everybody thinks they're Spielberg, and everybody thinks they have the ticket. Okay? The producer that wrote me the letter produced a 6-minute pitch reel with me in it. Just me sitting in front of a brick wall talking about murder. That was it. 5 minutes and 49 seconds long. And he started to try to sell it. It took him 2 years. He showed it to 20th Century Fox Television. They wanted it, which would be Fox Network. Then Discovery got wind of it. They all have spies that work in these various places. I got this thing, I got this new thing, I got this guy, you know, so right away they get involved, and then it becomes a price war between the two of them. Good for us, okay, but Discovery wins. I have to go back to Discovery headquarters to talk to them. And it was really kind of funny. I walked in this room, and there are 2 executives from the network and 5 lawyers. There's more lawyers than our executives in this room. And this guy, so this lawyer, and kind of almost arrogant, it's a woman. She said, "Are you represented by someone?" I said, "Yeah, I'm represented by me." "Who represents you?" He just kind of looked at it. And in about 2 minutes, I had the room terrified of me, you know. And what I said was, and I meant it, I said, "Look, you want to know about murder? You want to know how it works? Come with me and I'll show you. You want to do some Hollywood thing? Find somebody else. And if you'll excuse me, I have a lunch date. Goodbye." And I left. And they called me the next day. You know, "We're going to do this." Okay. I don't consider myself a celebrity. I don't. I never have. I think it's all pretty silly, you know. I mean, it's nice. I mean, if people talk to me, it's great. I'm always nice to everybody. I hold the baby, I pet the dog, you know. I pose for the iPhone photos. Kathy can take a picture with every phone made. So yeah, it is an experience that way. You whether you want to be or not, you wind up being well known. But I'm the same guy I've always been. I'm a policeman. I just have a different job at the moment. Pretty good job, but it pays a lot better. But it's just a job. It's talking about things I did for a living, and I enjoyed what I did, and I was good at it. Everybody has to be good at something. I was good at that.
Joe, we are at about your 10 o'clock in the back.
Hi, Detective Kenda. Thank you for, I'm back here.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah. Thank you for taking a lot of bad people off the streets so they're not walking among us. And I just have to ask you, since you're very good at solving mysteries, finding murderers, do you find it overwhelming now in the last 20 or 30 years with all the internet conspiracy stuff? I mean, it's constantly, us as regular people are being bombarded by it.
You're always hard. Let me tell you about conspiracy theory. It comes from criminal investigation experience, okay? The basic tenet of a conspiracy theory, particularly the ones perpetrated regarding the government, generally it's all about the government. Guys in black helicopters flying around in the middle of the night to run the world, and we're unfortunately not part of that group, and so we don't have our own black helicopter, and so on and so on. And they did this and they did that, and it's all a vast scheme and so on. The basic premise of all of those conspiracy theories is totally false. And that is that the government is hyper competent. We're talking about the government here. You know what I mean? Please. The post office can't get you a letter without losing it twice. I mean, so they're going to organize this thing. You know what would happen in reality? You and I become members of the black helicopter group. We get anointed. You're part of that. You're now part of running the world. Oh, cool. Is that our helicopter? Yes. Well, let's go for a ride. Well, there's no gas. What? Well, Frank, the fuel guy, his mother hasn't been well, and he's off. Well, is there a backup guy? Well, yeah, there is, but he had holidays that he had to use or lose, and So we can't. No, you can't fly the helicopter. Well, what the hell? Well, I'm sorry. It's all just patently ridiculous. Getting people together to commit a criminal act is an impossibility. It is. Right? Now, I do know who killed President Kennedy. It was the village people. Remember the thing? You got the policeman, the construction worker, they were on the grassy knoll. Oh, please. I did a homicide case in Dallas. When people kill people, they run away. You can't expect the locals to chase your guy. They got their own guys to chase. So you go to the city. I travel all over the country. You take one local with you for jurisdiction in case you shoot anybody, and then we go do something. I went to the Dallas Book Depository and I stood in the window overlooking the street where Kennedy was killed. You could have shot him with a handgun. You didn't need a rifle. That is really close. It doesn't look close on television, but you don't have to be a marksman to shoot everybody in that car. It would have been very, very easy to do. So the conspiracy theory thing is nonsense. It's just absolute nonsense. I have people come into my office more than once, many times more than once. They were psychics. Oh, we're going to find your killer. Okay. You're able to do that? Yes. Can you describe to me one case in the 241 years we've been a republic where a psychic was useful in an investigation? Just one. Well, no. Get out. Get out of my office and don't come back in here. Okay? I haven't got time to talk to you. You need a good psychiatrist, and I'm not it. I'm a policeman. You know what I mean? It's the same thing with conspiracy people about, there's some evil thing going on. Well, of course there is. Yeah, have you been out of town? Everybody's evil, all right? But is it organized? No, it's not. And the press, unfortunately, likes to paint themselves as guardians of the public interest. But in reality, they are a business. And the more you watch, the more money they make. So if it bleeds, it leads. Okay? Or if it fails. Oh, we like two things. We like blood and failure. Somebody's dead. Somebody failed at something. The Army failed to do this. The government failed to do that. The post office failed to do this. Your gas company failed to do this. And your garbage man failed to empty your can for the second week in a row. A probe is underway. Right? Will you go away? Just go away. Turn it off. Turn it off. You'll feel better. You'll watch the news for 5 days. You'll feel wonderful. Okay? You'll absolutely feel wonderful. I went to a homicide scene one night, and I got out of the car, and I smoked like a chimney. I haven't had a cigarette in 7 years. I smoked 3 or 4 packs a day, all the time, And I got out of the car and I lit a cigarette, and there's an anorexic blonde with too much makeup who's a reporter who sticks a microphone in my face, and she says, "Do you have any suspects?" I said, "Yeah, 800,000 of them, including you. That's the mental population of it." And then she looked at me, and I lit a cigarette, and she was very offended. She said, "Oh, you snuck." I said, "Honey, if you did what I did for a living, you'd be smoking cigars and inhaling them. Now get out of my way." Oh! You was mean to me. I'll be worse than mean to me if you don't get out of my way. Yeah. So that's of course the thing. Guess what?
Actually, back in the back of the
Okay.
room, to go in order.
Okay.
Hi, was your most disgusting case the one with the guy whose eyeballs were pulled out and placed in his mouth?
No, it wasn't disgusting, but I mean it was. But it's, what people always ask me, what's your worst case? Every one of them. Violent death is ugly. Television and movies do not present violent death. you have to see it. And it's way different than you might expect. And that particular case was, the thing, we didn't say this in the show because we didn't, it gets too involved if you try to talk about everything. But when we found that guy and I looked at his eyes were closed. They were sunken. And blood in his face. And I said, there's something wrong with his eyes. I opened one eye, there's no eyeball. Open the other eye, there's no eyeball. There's a rite in voodoo called Santeria, where human eyeballs are used to put curses on people and think, oh God, that's it's not that kind of thing. Then you pull back the lip. Oh, hello. Why are you there? You're supposed to be a little further apart. Yeah, that's, humans are very fragile, easily damaged, easily killed. And there was a dispute over a bottle of vodka. Not $1 million, not the torrid love affair, just a bottle of vodka. People need a lot of motive, you know?
We have time for 2 more questions. One from, who's next over here?
Where's it at over here? Who had their hand up?
We have a question.
Right here? Okay, sure. Absolutely. Hand up. Go ahead.
With your eyes crying, why don't you send them to your agency?
You're going to have to repeat that.
Yeah, you are.
A little bit louder, right into the microphone. You can do it.
She wants to know of all your unsolved crimes, why don't you send to the agency that you were mentioning earlier?
Well, we have, and we've solved one of them. I had 387 murders. I solved 356 by arrest or by exceptional clearance. 31 I did not. Now 30. We've solved one recently with the DNA. Of the 30 that remain, I have 17 of them I know did it and I can't prove it. Proof in a modern courtroom is proof beyond any doubt, not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. 13, I have no clue. Somebody on Earth at the time was responsible for that. So that's how it is. No matter how hard you work sometimes, you cannot resolve something that cannot be resolved. Now, the average rate of solution of homicide in the United States is between 58 and 62%. I was at 92, so I was doing okay. Or I'm an idiot who doesn't want to kill 8% of the people.
Mr. Kenda, where do you feel that the investigation into the John Benet Ramsey case went wrong?
Immediately. As soon as the Boulder Police Department arrived, that case became unprosecutable and it could not go to court with a confession. That girl will be in the grave and no one will ever pay for it. Period. The end. Fatal investigative errors. And the press loves that because the Ramsey family put the fun back in dysfunctional. Most people are teaching a 5-year-old how to ride a bike. They're not dressing her up like an adult and having her parade around the stage to relive her mother's youth. They don't do that. That is extremely bizarre. So from a press perspective, it's a man likes dog story. And they won't let it go. And they keep having anniversaries, and they keep having this and having that. What they don't grasp is, despite their supposed investigative reporting, there's absolutely zero possibility of that case going to criminal court at all. And everybody knows it, except the press and the general public who listen to this dribble from them about how this never-ending John Benet Ramsey. Oh, it ended. It ended that night. They did some things that were incomprehensibly bad, and the worst part of that was, in 1993, which was 3 years before Ramsey, 3 years before, that crime happened Christmas time, 1996. 3 years before that day, the Denver PD and the Springs PD are the 2 largest police departments in the state. We had a meeting in Vail, Colorado, of all the law enforcement agencies in the state of Colorado, 63 counties, 63 county sheriffs, municipal chiefs of police, everybody who carries a gun in bed. We had this meeting in Vail, everybody shows up. We have a map of the state of Colorado on the wall with a red line through the center. And we say to this crowd, we say, look, here's the deal. Myself in the Springs and this gentleman who's a homicide lieutenant in Denver PD, if you are a small agency, you've never had a murder, you've never had one forever, maybe you haven't ever had one, period, and you've got 4 guys working for you and you know what to do, and you live north of that red line, you call Denver PD. And they will respond, they will lie to the press and say they work for you, they will work your case, tie it up with a yellow ribbon, give it to you. You have the press conference, you're the hero. We fade away. You're south of that line, you call me, we do the same thing. We get a standing ovation. Standing ovation. Boulder PD waits 7 days before they call Denver. And Denver hangs up on him. Okay, I don't know. He calls me next. Well, I just talked to Denver and he wasn't very nice, really. Well, can you help us? Not now. So let me ask you a question. Are the press accounts of what you've done so far reasonably accurate? Well, yeah, they're accurate. Okay. They're going to fire you within a year. And the next time your DA comes up for an election, she's going to be looking for a job. You have booted this case down the drain. I say it in my book, I say it to people when I train people, a homicide is like a spinning top on a table. When you arrive, it's spinning perfectly. It's designed to do that. You should put your hands in your pockets and admire it and determine where it is you want to touch it. Because if you touch it in the wrong place, it goes off the table and you never get it back. They pushed Ramsey off the table right away, and it's a done deal. No matter what ABC News thinks or anybody else, it's a done deal. They couldn't get past the preliminary hearing program. I mean, it's pathetic. It is just pathetic. And they did fire the chief of Boulder. They fired a whole bunch of people, and it didn't make a difference. That horse already left the barn. That's what happens. I mean, it does. It happens. The trouble with police departments is they're staffed by humans. If we could just get those robots to work, we'd have something going then, but can't quite figure it out.
Okay, we are out of time for this particular session, so let's give Lieutenant Kenda. Thanks also to Michael here for running the microphone, and for Aaron for running our sound, and running the level. So we're going to take about a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back, and then we'll ask Brian Ritz to say a few words for maybe 10 minutes or so, starting at 11 o'clock, and then we'll call up Lieutenant Kennedy again, and we'll bring another podium up here. What we'll be doing now is we're going to ask Detective Brian Ritz to come up and introduce himself, talk for maybe 5 or 10 minutes about his career and how he works separately with other people, and also, of course, with Detective Kenda over the years to solve cases. And then, after that, we will start taking questions just only for Detective Brian Ritz for a while. And then we'll call Detective Kenda back up, and then the two of them can talk together about how they work to solve cases together. And we'll also do something similar with Detective Larry Martin on the last one. So, this season has featured a lot of cases, season 7, where Brian Ritz was really taking the lead with Detective Kenda both. They were working really as a team, kind of a dynamic duo. So let's welcome Detective Brian Ritz.
Good morning, everybody. There's some people in the audience that are here for arrest. And we're going to call security and have it removed here.
We are security.
Okay, I'm not sure exactly what you want to hear. What you say, I started with the police department in 1979. Retired 35 years later as a lieutenant. I spent 8 years as a patrol officer, master patrol officer, field training officer, 7 years as a detective, 10 years as a sergeant, 10 years as a lieutenant. So I had quite a large variety of things I did in my career. I had 3 jobs that I enjoyed the most. One was working homicide. Although sometimes that can be a real pain, but I did enjoy working homicide. The other, I spent about 6 years riding a bicycle. That was a good job. That was a fun job. I got to stay fit. I used to ride to work 20 miles, ride all day, another 25 miles or so, and then ride mostly home. Sometimes I call my wife out to pick me up for the short flight. And finally, the last few years, I worked in a patrol support section where I worked with major accidents, code enforcement, special events, where I did a lot of special event, incident command stuff, and office of emergency management. What we saw in law enforcement, what I saw in law enforcement, has really changed from the time I went in there in '79 to what it is today. It's become a lot more involved. What we used to do sometimes with 3 detectives, they now do with teams of 7 and 8. It's just everything's gotten more involved. People have Facebook, all the social media that they have coming out now. It's to our advantage in many ways because criminals are kind of dumb. Stupidity kept me employed for a lot of years. The reality is, they'll confess on Facebook something they would never tell us, but they confess to us when we get their Facebook page. It helps. And a lot of times we've had cases cleared just that way. Some moron gets on there and can't help but brag about the shoot up he just did. And we're there to arrest him a few days later. He goes, well, how do you know? Well, I know what you look on Facebook page, you moron. But I had a great career. I really enjoyed working in law enforcement. It's a good career for a lot of people. It's not for everybody. The homicide time was busy. I had 2 young children. My wife had medically retired from the police department as a police dispatcher, so I was lucky that she got to stay and take care of our kids when I would go running out to dinner. Big restaurant, we had to drive 2 cars someplace, so I had to make arrangements for her to get a car to get home. Leave in the middle of the night. Now, the only thing with that is, I was one of those guys that if I was finally sleeping, I slept. The phone would ring, I may answer it, and I can swear to God, I didn't talk to a single soul on that personal part on that phone when I hung it up. And she's going, hey, was that a call out? Oh yeah, it was. So I got get dressed and I had no idea where I'm going. So you call dispatch, phone in service, and by the way, where am I supposed to be? They kind of snicker at that every once in a while. They do it. I had a special arrangement with my court liaison officer to say, call me once, call me right back. Then I'll get up. So just you do these things, just always adapt, always work to get the job done. And that's what was fun about this. Your job was different almost every day. I didn't go in and sit at a computer all day long, program things. I had something different to do every day, and that was a real positive for me. It's what I really enjoy doing. So enough about me. I do have a wife, 2 children, both are adult, married, out of the house. I guess he's a software engineer for satellites, Lockheed Martin. The other one's a department manager for Kohl's. 2 dogs, 1 cat. No, I don't have a cat. My wife has a cat. I do not have a cat. At that point, if you have questions for me, I'd like to just go right into that. I'm better at answering questions than talking about myself. Is this better? Worse? Okay.
Okay, so let's switch sides to the left here.
I have 1 question over here.
Okay.
Hang on this second.
Any questions for Brian?
Brian, we're at, I sure want to talk.
Detective, I'd like to know your opinion on legalization of marijuana in Colorado Springs. My nephew was in the station at Fort Carson. I go out there frequently and I've noticed a tremendous amount of young people that have no place to live. The parks are full of homeless people. Can you make a comment on that, please?
Yes, I can. I'm not sure I want to. Legalization of marijuana. Colorado voted to legalize marijuana. That was, in my view, a mistake. It's still illegal federally, although there's some kind of agreement where they're not really pushing. If the states choose to do it, they're not going to go in and try to prosecute unless the state starts messing it up and not monitoring what they're doing. I disagree with it. Never touched the stuff, never would. When I started, if you even tried it, you didn't get the job. But as things progressed, when you, later on, if you tried it and had, quote, experimented with it, you can still apply and become a police officer. And that holds true with some of the harder drugs now. So it's just the evolution of the drug culture in the United States that led to this legalization. It has brought some tax money into the city, or excuse me, into the state. The city of Colorado Springs, I don't believe actually allows it inside. You can smoke recreational, but they're not allowing sales for recreational, they allow sales for medical. So it's not a great influx of cash for that. You can't really compare the homeless population with medical marijuana or the use of recreational marijuana. The reality is we've had a homeless population in Colorado Springs, just like any other neighborhood, any other city in the state. We've had a homeless population. It has grown over the time. The job that I had with a bicycle, we did a lot of work trying to deal with the transient population, the homeless population. The guys living under the bridges, trying to keep things clean, keep them from drinking and throwing their bottles or urinating, defecating in the creeks and things like this. It was a full-time job. And we stayed very busy at it, trying to work with them. Now we got people, the social people saying, oh, we're being mean to them. We have other people saying we need these areas clean because I don't feel safe walking in my own city park. And what was happening is a social problem is becoming a police problem. We're trying to do police problems. Sometimes we don't have the manpower to work on social problems. So there are a lot of transient population in Colorado Springs. For a while there, we had what was called a HOT team, homeless outreach team. They did a lot of work trying to help get some of these guys off the street, get them into some place to stay, whether it was a hotel or providing services or anything like that. The problem with that was now all of a sudden Colorado Springs has this reputation of being great and friendly to homeless, and we saw a greater influx, which then took more demand on our services. So it just got a little tougher. I hope that gives you an idea where we're coming from to answer your question. You can't mix the two. The money doesn't come into the city like it should. It would be great if it did, but I'd rather see the money come from other resources than marijuana.
Nicholas over here on this side.
Yes.
First of all, I wanted to say thank you for your years of service that you gave to law enforcement, to community, and you have to acknowledge that it is a thin blue line. But I have two questions for you. Are you doing any consulting work, or are you still in active law enforcement at all? And second, can you comment on the disrespect for law enforcement that we're seeing across our nation? I mean, it's an epidemic, and it's discouraging for those of us that respect law enforcement or have family members in law enforcement. And I know there's something that is, like you said, there's a difference between the law and social ills, and we understand that, but anything that you would have to say about that?
Well, your first question, I did 35 years with the Colorado Springs Police Department. I retired. My wife was still working for a little bit on a part-time job that she was doing in the local water district. And she kind of told me I needed to go do something. So I went to work with a local school district doing armed security, firearms instruction for the school district. And then after 2 years, I was done with that. I was just as bored at home as in the district, which was a good thing. I mean, you want your security to be bored at the school, because it means there's not a whole lot of problems. But that was the end of it. So I'm not doing anything right now. And it's the first time I've actually felt retired and really felt like I was enjoying it. Because when I first retired, I kept saying it's not what it's cracked up to be. And it just wasn't for me. But I'm learning, and this is part of it, getting on a cruise. That's one of the few things we've got to do. And the second question dealt with disrespect. when I retired, I didn't really want to go. It was the way my retirement plan was set up, and it was time for me to go, so I went. That was before the Freddie Gray case and all these other cases. We've had other issues like that, but that's where you start to see this real spark in the view of police, the change in the view of police. 99.9% of those officers are out there trying to do the best they can. And every once in a while, one guy might screw up, and that's of course where, I think if you were here when Lieutenant Kenda was talking, that's where the press jumps on it. And what they do is they jump on it and they only tell you their side of it. They don't tell the whole story. If you've ever seen any of the videos, the whole video versus what's shown on press, you'll see that there's always two sides to the story, and it's not fully shared. It only shared their take on it or how they want to express it. So, yeah, it is tougher for law enforcement these days. These guys are out there, they're there to help the public. They want to help people. That's the reason they got in law enforcement, is to serve their community, to give back to their community. And sometimes it's just a negative, and luckily most of them can go on every day, continue to do their job without falling into the pit of becoming a real nasty, arrogant kind of person. But they accept their job, they accept what they're doing, they accept the feedback they get. Every once in a while you get somebody who says thank you. But remember, law enforcement officers deal with about 5% of the population. Most everybody else will see them, and I can probably ask you right now, how many of you, when you see a cop, slow down, whether you're speeding or not? I do the same thing.
Brian, we have a question about your 5 o'clock in the back.
Okay.
I guess regarding homicide, I was curious, on a lot of the episodes, there are anonymous tips that come in which seem to be crucial for solving crimes. I was just wondering is there a percentage that you could say where without tips coming in, you wouldn't be able to solve a crime? And whether or not they're anonymous or perhaps it's an informant that you get information from.
Well, those anonymous tips that we get are a double-edged sword. Because every time you get an anonymous tip, it's documented, so that the defense gets it. And if we don't investigate it, then they're going to investigate it. They're going to try to build a separate suspect, an alternate suspect to the case. So we've got to go in there and jump on those tips and look at every one and at least do some justice to them to prove that they're not real, or if they're good, use it to help build our case. Tips come in, we do get some good tips. We get a lot of bogus tips. And I'm not saying that people are lying to us, it is their perception of it. They think this person's involved or that person's involved. And we like getting the tips, but it does create a lot of work for us. Because if we don't do it, somebody else will do the job, and then we're accused of not doing our job, which once again was bad court. So I can't give you a percentage. I know it was nice when we did get a tip in and it worked out real well. I don't remember too many cases on mine that made a big difference in the case, because we were already working a lot of the tips that we already got in. Somebody would say something that we already know, but it's just nice to have that reinforcement.
Okay. Good morning. My question is about your celebrity. Last night during dinner, my wife she saw you and like, oh my God! So my question on that is, as an actor, which you are now, that you do on the show, is there lines involved? How do you feel personally about your newfound celebrityship? Because I guess if you're more anonymous as a police officer, it's in where you were working, but right now, how does it feel?
Well, I'm out of my element, to be perfectly honest. When you're in the uniform, you blend in. And you're representing the city or whatever county or agency you work for. You really blend in. You don't have a personality. You can't share that personality. Your opinions are not yours. They're the department's opinions. So now, I'm very much an introvert person. I might be a type A personality, which I definitely am if you ask my wife. But I'm very much an introvert. So it's difficult for me to get out and do some of these things, other than the fact my job made me do it. So getting out and talking to people, public meetings, especially the last few years, I did a lot of that stuff. I taught DARE for 5 years, I think it was 6 years. And you're getting up even though they're little kids, you still, just not that great talking fun people. But, so, that kind of helped. I mean, I don't feel like a celebrity. I'm just a normal person. This is what I did. And I enjoy doing it. And I got started with this when my PIO came down and said, hey, they want to talk to you about an old case. Okay, so I want to talk about an old case, and I find out what it's about. Oh, really? It's a television show. Nobody told me that. I went back to my PIO and said, hey, this is a television show you sent me in for. Oh, we didn't know that. It was their job to know, but whatever. So I don't really feel like a celebrity. I did my job. I thoroughly enjoyed doing my job. I didn't do it for me, and I did it for the community. I got my paycheck. That's all I expected out of it.
I'm going to do one more question, and then we'll ask Lieutenant Kenda to come back up.
Good morning. I heard that interrogating a suspect is an art. I just want to know what your approach was.
Interrogations are an art. And you'd be surprised the things you'd be willing to do to get a confession. How you might have to empathize with a sex assault offender or sexual assault on a child. How you have to say, oh, man, I understand why you do that. I look at her, you know, you really do some things legal, but you do some things that are very difficult for the average person to do. To sit there and talk with somebody who you know just murdered his grandmother or his daughter without wanting to just throttle him, which you kind of want to do, but you don't. It's difficult. And it was difficult in a lot of ways. We all went through a special training for interrogation techniques. We got some basic academy instruction on that. There's some schools on it that you go through and try to get. You pick up a lot by watching others. And that's where a lot of the education comes from, is just actually watching others. Seeing something they do that you like to do, that you want to try, or something you saw them do and you go, I would never do that, but I don't like it. Can you lie to a suspect? Yes, you can. You can't promise some things that you can't hold true to, but you can lie to a suspect. And sometimes you're lying to suspects. It's your car. We had a witness says it was your car. We've got the license plate. You don't even know what his car is. But sometimes it works. You'd be surprised some of the things that clear cases. We had one person that was killed in the park. She had bite marks on her back. We got a court order to get this guy out of Linwood Springs, bring him back and take dental impressions. So our forensic odontologist could look at the impressions to say, yeah, this is bite marks on her. And when he asked the nurse that was helping the odontologist, well, how good are teeth marks? And she answered something like, well, they're better than fingerprints. This guy just melted right there on the floor. And an hour or two later, we had a confession and everything, because he knew we had him. So it's kind of strange, but we'll finally get somebody to spill their guts.
Well, that's a nice segue into what we're going to do next. And my dad and I were really bonded over seeing this show on CBS called The Mentalist. And you'd see Patrick Jane, interrogating the subject and using these mental tricks too. And here are two real live mentalists. This ain't fiction. This is real deal. It's not scripted. And by the way, as someone said earlier, the script is not made until after all these gentlemen have spoken to the camera. Then from that, kind of almost like a retroactive script is created for the recreation. We'll talk more about that this afternoon. So, Lieutenant Kenda, if you could explain a little bit how the dynamic of you two working together to solve the case.
I just told Brian that, yeah, he'd like to know. I just told Brian, I said, hey, this is better than 2 o'clock in the morning with an hour's worth of sleep, isn't it? That's when we used to see each other. Call teams are designed to investigate a case based upon assignments. A call team responds with me. You can expand this call team to any number of call teams, but there's a suspect detective, crime scene detective, and a victim detective. They all have specific assignments. You can make that 1 guy or 3 guys or 10 guys if you need to, but Brian generally was a suspect detective. On occasion he was crime scene, on occasion he was victim, but the majority of the time it was suspect. I I asked Brian to come into homicide because I thought he was really smart, and he is. And he did a good job, and we worked extremely well together. And he left because he promoted out, like a lot of guys do, and he went on to do a lot of different things on the police department that are all very rewarding. I think he enjoyed his time in homicide, but there comes an end to everything, and you move on to do something else. What he said about interrogation is absolutely true. It is an art, and you do find yourself revolted by people that you're talking to and trying to be friends with. There were occasions when I'd walk out and want to go take a shower, and after talking to some of these people. It's the way, it's the nature of the work. You have to get to them, and you never know what that final moment, as Brian said, is going to be. And then the bite mark case, that was true. The guys' bite marks are better than fingerprints. Oh my God, you know. So you never know what the magic number is to convince somebody to just say, all right, you know, I'm going to go down for this and have them tell you about it. But when we worked together, it was all about assignments. It was all work. It was friendly, sort of. But for the most part, it's work. Brian had assignments, everybody had assignments. They'd come back and report to me what he learned. Other guys would come back and report to me what he learned. The following day, we'd have a lead meeting. In a lead meeting, you put up a big board on the wall, or sometimes if we had it, or just a piece of paper in your hand, the known leads in the case. We're looking for a guy in a blue car. We're looking for a girl that has red hair, whatever. You assign those leads to each detective. Go detect. See in 4 hours, you know. Come back to the meeting. Okay, what about the guy in the blue car? What about the red-headed girl? What do you know? What do you know? What do you know? Now everybody knows what everybody else knows. So everybody's up to speed on the information of the case, and now more leads. Until we begin to focus on what we believe is maybe a primary thing to do. What Brian also said about informants is true. No one is intentionally trying to lead you down the wrong path. They're telling you what they believe. The problem is, it's often hearsay. I know a guy who knows a guy who knows another guy who said this. Oh, good. You know, so we're in the fourth level of communication. It's probably not accurate. So there's all sorts of things that go on every day. And Brian and I and everybody else in the unit would just look at each other in total frustration a lot of times. It's something we just did or we thought had promised, blows up in our face. Time to start over. And nobody liked the middle of the night.
Well, when you got called out in the middle of the night, at least you knew you were getting time and a half when you were doing it. Sunday was double time.
When I was a sergeant in homicide, I got paid overtime. When I made a lieutenant, I didn't, because I was considered manager. So I didn't get paid overtime. When I was a sergeant, I got paid. So I buy something for Kathy really nice for Christmas. And I go shopping Christmas Eve by the time I had to buy her something. I come home and I said, Kathy, people died for this. Oh my God!
I get in trouble a lot of ways, and that's not one.
All right, so let's see what questions any of you have for these gentlemen. Just raise your hand. Bounce back and forth between sides of the room again.
I will say one thing. This is what I wore when I was in homicide. Coat, tie, slacks. I never wore a suit. So every time you see me on TV in a suit, it's not me.
Hi, officers. How you doing?
Good.
I was a former prosecutor, and I'm wondering what you guys think about the CSI effect and forensics, public perception. I'm curious.
Well, I'm sure everybody knows DNA isn't done in 5 minutes. Cases aren't solved in an hour. When this came out, when you started seeing CSI and they were doing all these great things with forensics, yes, the technology's there, but it's not as they displayed it. It's not how they showed it. And people would come up to, well, what do you mean you don't have fingerprints identified yet? Well, what do you mean you don't know whose DNA this is? And we spend more time trying to explain that it takes time. It's got to be properly preserved, processed, and it takes time. And everybody's thinking, oh, well, television has it done in 5 minutes. And they're going, that's television. Get over it. But they don't. That's what they see. That's what they know. They'll look at something on television, and by God, that's the only way it can be done. But luckily, we know that it doesn't only happen that one way, and we'll put every effort we can to get it done in the most timely fashion that we can. But sometimes cases drag on. And we do have unsolved cases. Somebody knows things about it, but they're not talking. And we can't beat it out of them. We'd like to, but we can't.
I'll follow up with that just one time. Recently, this is recent, not years ago. I have a friend of mine from the DA's office call me and tell me this happened in a murder case. They take the murder case to trial, the jury goes out to deliberate. They send a note to the judge, they want to ask you a question. It's not unusual, they forgot something, they want to rehear something somebody said. So the judge went back to the chambers and the foreman of the jury handed him a note. And the judge looks at the note and the foreman says, why wasn't that test performed? And he looks at the note and he said, because it doesn't exist. Well, it's on CSI. And you see, that's television, sir, and this is reality. There is no such test. We need to continue to deliberate. You know what I mean? It's incredible.
Okay, we have a question here on the right, over here about 4 o'clock.
Hello, gentlemen. Good afternoon. Thank you again. Question is, I know you have a lot of cases. So who chooses what gets on television? Who makes that decision on what case?
Okay, I'll answer that because Brian doesn't know. What they do is, in Colorado, there's an open records act. You can go into a police department as a private citizen or anybody at all and say, you know, my neighbor was murdered 10 years ago. I've always been curious about that case. May I have a copy of it? If the case has been adjudicated and appeals have been exhausted, then yes, you may have a copy of it. And they say, well, how much is it? What's $1 a page? Well, how many pages? Well, 2,000 or 3,000. Okay, well, never mind. I'm not that interested. But if you're a television network, you buy 60 of them at a time. So they take all the cases that have my name in it, as a supervisor, as a detective, as a lieutenant, and they read them. And they make decisions about them as they read them, which stories they like and which ones they don't like as well. And then they'll call me and ask me, what do you think about this one? Yeah, okay, we'll do that one. You know? And that's how it proceeds. And then we discuss it over the phone and by computer as to what cases I'm going to talk about when I go to Colorado to film. And then those are the cases we do that particular trip. Now I go every month. I'm in Colorado for 1 week out of every month from now until October to finish 20 episodes for season 8, which starts filming. We start filming season 8 2 days after I return from this cruise. So I come back Friday night at 7 o'clock in Norfolk, Virginia. And at 0500, a limo comes to my house on Monday morning, and I'm back in Ridge, Colorado to film the first episodes of season 8. So, but that's how it works. That's how it's always worked. They look at them. They have a certain thing they like to look at. They want certain things, understandably. They want a sympathetic victim. They're not particularly interested in drug dealer cases. Brian and I had no choice in that matter. We didn't get to select the quality of our victim. You know? A victim is a victim. We didn't look at it that way. We didn't care what lifestyle you lead. Nobody gets to play God. Nobody gets to kill people. That's against the law. But they look at it differently. So they review those and they go over them. And we don't do children cases because that's a little too, that crosses the line for television. You can't do cases about babies. They don't do those. But they look at the others and they make their decisions.
We have a question back over to the door left.
LT, I know that different evidence gets sent to different labs. Can you kind of tell us what ones are going to the city lab, what ones are going to CBI, and what ones are going to how do you split that out?
Well, it's sorted out by their ability to analyze it. It's a pretty simple thing. You know, can our own lab do it? No. Can CBI do it? No. FBI do it? Yeah, they can do it. Okay, so it just depends on who has the capability and who can do it in the most timely manner, which a timely manner is, believe me, it's like, whoa, you know what I mean? You want emergency DNA, it's 9 months. You know, it's not 30 seconds like it is on television. It's very tight because you're standing in line. There is a never-ending line to examine evidence taken from the crime scene. Our laboratory is pretty capable, but they're not capable in every area. They advance all the time, but they're not capable of everything. CBI is very capable as well. Our Bureau of Investigation, every state has a Bureau of Investigation, the Georgia Bureau, GBI, and all that sort of thing. They all have it. There are state laboratories to service the law enforcement agencies within the state. CBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, has 2 labs, one in Denver, one in Pueblo, and we would always use one in Pueblo because it was closer to us. We would transport the item here personally, hand to hand to them. And that's how it works. So it just depends on what they can do and how quickly they can do it.
And it's a very expensive process also establishing a lab. So it's limited.
Okay, we have another question over here, about 3 o'clock.
Hi, good morning, guys. Question for you. I know you weren't involved in castings, but what did you think when you saw your actor over
Everybody wanted to know that. And the first thing I noticed, he was shorter than I was. He gave me that one. You can't blame anybody but yourself. No, you know, it's interesting. It's nice to see. I think he's well portrayed. I think he does a great job. I did tell him he carried the wrong kind of gun and he thrusted inappropriately. Suits are not good. These clean easier than suits, and they're cheaper than suits. And when you have a $50 tie and you get blood on it, it never seems to come out, and you always know it was there. And your wife kind of looks at it like, that needs to go away. And you send it to the dry cleaner and they shred it. So, you know, clothing does play a part sometimes. Sometimes it's just you wear what you have to wear to get the job done. Nowadays they get tactical pants and t-shirts, they call that a uniform. Okay. I like being at least presentable.
In answer to the casting question for me, this is kind of a funny story, really. And we did the first season in Hollywood, and the Screen Actors Guild has a book, like a multiple listing book. Instead of houses, it's got actors in it, front and side view. The director asked my wife to provide a photograph of me when I was 43 years old. And she did that. I was in uniform. She did that, and I was 43 years old. And the director took that photograph. I watched him do this, and he opened the book to the male section and started paging and holding the picture in his hand and paging and paging. And he got to Carl Reno, and he stopped and he held the photograph up next to him, and he put his finger on it. He said, "Call him, see if he's available." That's how Carl got the job. They pointed him out. All he was looking for was someone that looked like me, who was a professional actor, which happens to be Carl Reno. So that's how that happened. So casting sometimes is the luck of the draw. And they called him, and he said he was busy or something. They called somebody. That's how it works.
We have a question over here to your left.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Can you tell me how much DNA helped you with your investigations?
Well, I can tell you, when I started, DNA wasn't a process yet. Or if it was a process, we weren't used to it, hadn't developed that far. We had a few cases get cleared. What's nice is what we see is some of our older cases can be cleared through DNA. When somebody finally screws up, gets arrested, their profile gets involved, and the coders can look at it. It's just like fingerprints. If you have a fingerprint, it doesn't mean a thing until you have somebody to compare it to. The same with DNA. So you can have all the blood storage, protect all this stuff. If you don't have anything to compare it to, you don't have a case yet. So I know we did some work with DNA. In my case, it wasn't as much. As later on years, obviously it became more involved.
1991 was the first case in Colorado Springs where DNA was used in prosecution. The system was invented in England in 1987 by a scientist, a doctor at Oxford,